Obviously, you've just spoken about your personal coaching philosophy. I'm assuming a lot of that is taken into Selborne. But if we look at Selborne rugby in general, how do you guys approach the game there? What is the Selborne coaching philosophy or the Selborne way of doing things?
Yeah, I think if you look at the DNA of Selborne College rugby over the last 20, 25, not even, from when we started playing rugby, and especially from when I can remember, Selborne has always been a counter-attacking, really quick backs, really big, strong forwards. We love the first phase. That speaks to Selborne College and its identity. So I try not veer too far off from that. And we try and focus as much as possible on things like your counter attack, your first phase, launches to a certain extent. But it's an exciting brand of rugby. It's a bone crunching, bruising type of rugby. And to try and instill that, to try and get that right with every group is a challenge. But you know how it is. The boys eventually get to grade 11, grade 12, and all they want to do is play the same sort of rugby that when they were in grade 8 and that first team was playing, they want to play that rugby. And so, yeah, the DNA, what Selborne is about is very much centered around that, which is counter-attacking rugby. We get on the counter-attack. We love our first phase. We usually have some strong, big, burly forwards that are not scared to get stuck in, and generally have some quick, pacey backs that are deadly on the counter-attack.
Definitely, yeah, that's been the characteristic since I've been watching Selborne anyway. So who's involved with the first 15 next year, or this year, with 2023 now?
Yeah. Yeah, so very fortunate with the team that I've got. Obviously myself with the head coach and running the strength and conditioning. My assistant coach is James Alderman, a really good friend of mine, but also a fantastic backs coach. Really good to have on board. He brings a very different sort of thinking, a very exciting sort of thinking. He challenges me a lot, so he's really a good 2RC. And then, as I said earlier, we've got Matt Francis, who is not part of the school, but he is an old boy. He's actually the president of the Old Selbornians Association. Okay. So heavily involved with the school, but he does the mental conditioning side. So that has been probably the most, how do I say, the best thing for the boys. And they love him. They enjoy his sessions. He challenges them on just a totally different level. It's not about being tired on the field. It's about now, oh my goodness, I'm challenging the way that you think and putting them in different scenarios and helping them through certain things. So he's been phenomenal. We have a physiotherapist, Bram Berger. It was actually his first season last year. So baptism of fire for him. Coming in the 150th year, I think we played 22 games. It was a really quick introduction for him, but incredibly hard worker and has really fitted into the team so well. And then unfortunately, we lose a lady by the name of Lauren Null. She was a teacher at Selborne probably for the last 4 or 5 years, and she's been involved since 2018. And she brought a very unique skill set to us, and that was hand-eye coordination, peripheral vision, things like that. And she was incredible. I can tell you stories. I can name you players where players weren't able to physically catch a ball from the base of a ruck to all of a sudden off of kickoffs, jumping, catching the ball, hands up. So the work that she did was incredible, and she'll be a really big loss. But I'm hoping that we can still keep her involved somehow.
Oh, that's awesome. there's a lot of things that you're saying at what's going on at Selborne and who's there that I'm thinking back to my conversations that I had with Pierre while he was still there. And I think he'll be very proud to know that a lot of these things are still in place. And I think that's kind of the perfect segue to go to talking about Pierre. You've mentioned him a couple of times already in the interview and the role that he's played. I think most people will know who he is, and if you don't know who he is, you've got to figure it out very quickly because that guy is gonna do some special stuff. If he gets a head coach job in one of our UFC unions, everybody else is in big trouble because they're gonna have to step up their game. But talk a little bit about Piwe, and obviously he's the guy you took over from, and then Piwe went professional. He went to the Sharks. He left a fantastic legacy as well. I think he really brought Selborne to a next level. And I remember we had a discussion with him where he said the first time he spoke to the boys, he said, listen, we're going to be a top 5 school. And the guys were like, what? We're not a top 5 school. And he got them there. Border was special while he was coaching them, and you've taken over from him there as well. So you've really kind of had the time to spend with Piwe, and you've taken over from him, and you've kept the standard there, which I think is very difficult to do. We see it so a lot, right? Look at Boys Eye, for example. When Sean left, a professional coach came in, and he just couldn't keep up. So it's not that easy to take over from a very successful legacy like that. But what was it like working with Piwe?
Yeah, you talk about just the legacy of Piwe. You know, I don't know if you watch football. Don't know if you follow the Premier League.
But, I do.
Even if you don't, you know, most people a household name is Sir Alex Ferguson. And if I had to ask you, Tex, who took over from Alex Ferguson, would you be able to tell me?
I'm a United fan, so yes, I know it was Dave Moyes, unfortunately.
Oh, really? So you would?
Yes, yeah.
So, you know, and that sort of kills what I wanted to say. But there's
it's only because I'm a fan. It's only because I'm a United supporter. That's the only reason I know it was Dave Moyes.
So, you know, it was a really daunting task, taking over from someone who had achieved things at Selborne in such a short space of time that no other coach had ever achieved. It was mind-blowing working with the guy and just how dynamic he is, and you know, how strong he was in making certain decisions, and the emphasis that he put on culture was something that I took from him a lot. But just the intensity at which he coached was incredible. But taking over from a Piwe normal was always going to be a daunting task, because when something is at almost its best that it's ever been, you don't really want to be taking over then, because how do you take that and then make it better? So it was incredibly daunting taking over from P, but it was certainly a challenge that I was up for. It was going to be challenging, but that's what gets me up. That's what keeps me up, and that's what gets me up. And yeah, so it was great working with the man. Like I said to you earlier, just the life lesson, the friendship that I've got with him. He's a fantastic individual. He really is, and I wish him all the best. Like you say, I think it's only a matter of time until he's sitting in a big boy seat, and there'll be some special rugby on show. So
definitely,
yeah, really good working with Pete. Really good lessons.
Yeah. It's just again, I had the privilege of getting to know him through Katlego, who had this coaching group called the Kaizen Coaches, and he did a presentation for us once on how he approached rugby at Selborne, and just the stuff he was talking about. Again, like for example, you guys having that hand and eye coordination coach there, and he said it's like he went through the body, he put the body of a rugby player up there, and he said, right, what's the most important limb or part of it? And everybody came up. I think I said heart, somebody said brain, somebody said hands, and he's like, no, it's the eye, because if you can't see the picture, you can't do anything, right? And it was so brilliantly simple, again, like your 100-second thing, that I again realized, geez, there are some special people out there that look at the game in a different way.
Yeah.
Because again, we had this thing where we also, when a guy comes on to present, the first question Kat asks is, what's your coaching philosophy? And we get these big answers like it's whatever, attacking mindset, this, what. And he just came on and said, it's just strive for excellence. It's as simple as that. It's just, and you don't expect that. You expect him, and I'm sitting with a notepad like he's going to come. It's like, no, just strive for excellence. Just do everything you do to the best of your ability. And it's so simple. And so he's so good with that. And then again, at that stage, you talk about at Selborne, you guys always tried to do something that nobody else was doing. And it started with the Ike coach, and then he brought in the mental toughness, I think, as well. And at that stage, he didn't want to tell us what was the next thing, but he said he was watching a lot of American football. I still got to ask him what was it at the end of the day they were doing. But yeah, so he's just looking at the game in a completely different way, but also finding a way to get it done, right? Because I also often say I'm very unique as a coach, and I spoke in a no, you were on the TexTalks, right? I spoke about that triangle attack thing that I wanted to try. Complete failure,
yes,
right? Because I had the ideas, but I wasn't able to execute it. Piwe has the ideas and he's able to execute, and that's a very special combination to have. So I'm a big fan of him, and I'm excited to see where he's going.
I think where P was really good was, you know, easily accessible now that you don't really have an excuse to not understand the technical side of rugby. But where Piwe was incredibly good was he would take these complexities and just make them incredibly simple. So it was, and like you say, you're expecting this massive philosophy, strive for excellence, and that I think sums him up in that he kept things really simple, but found a way to make that excellent, and that's why he was good.
Oh, awesome, brilliant. But anyway, the Piwe era is past. We're in the Chase Morison era now. What does a Selborne season look like? So when you guys do your planning, how do you look at the season? How do you plan? What are the key areas of the season you look at? You don't have to give away any trade secrets, but just give us a general idea of how you guys approach the season.
Yeah, so we have a very different approach at Selborne, where we don't have too many actual contact field sessions leading up to the season. And where that can be detrimental to your preparation, it's something that, you know, it's something that I've had to deal with, and it's something that you must now adapt. And how do we still get to a level of preparation where we can be successful and competitive in the season? So we have so going into the new year, we'll have one field session per week, and we will have 3 conditioning sessions per week. So those conditioning sessions are all done in the morning. Selborne is a very holistic school, so the summer program is big and very important. So the cricket club and the water polo club are 2 very well run clubs at Selborne, and also really competitive. So it's difficult, you know, and I think it's at all the schools these days where it's so difficult to try and find the balance of we need to prepare for a rugby season, but we also need our summer program to do well.
Yeah.
And so it's a challenge, but every year we somehow get through it, and where preparation could probably be a little bit better in terms of contact sessions on the field, we make a plan and make it. So I'm really big on, you know, as much time as we spend on the field and as much time as we spend in the gym, I believe we should be spending the same amount of time in the classroom. And so the way that we take on the preseason is, you know, to theme it would be clarity. So to make sure that our entire squad is very clear on how it is that we want to play the game. And then on top of that, we have our conditioning sessions where we put the boys through their paces. And then obviously that one field session where we can get a couple of technical things in. And that sort of sums us up.
So the one field session, is that just for the preseason, or do you follow that throughout the season?
No. That's just for the preseason. And then in season, do you want me to get into that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so in season, I get ridiculed quite often, just about the approach that I take and that I believe in. So we we do our contact on a Thursday, so match day -2. We have our contact session on that day. Monday, Matt Francis will come in, so it will be a mental conditioning debrief. There will be a lot of recovery protocols, both in the gym and on the field, and that's our Monday. Our Tuesday is our biggest day. Our Tuesday D-Day, so that's where we do 90% of our coaching for the week. But that's where we'll go through all our analysis. So preview, review, and then we will have a proper hit out on the field as to how it is that we want to take the game on. At the start of the season, Wednesday, for probably the first 3-4 weeks, that Wednesday is there for any sort of unit work-ons. Okay. So the coaches will be available, and if the guys want to come out, they can. It's totally optional. Thursday is our contact day. Very short, very sharp. Probably our intensity day, so intensity contact day. And then Friday, again, it becomes, towards the beginning of the season, I'll almost make the captains compulsory. But we do it slightly different, where I don't mind if the team get together at a second break where we've got a longer, 50-minute break. I don't mind the guys taking their shoes off and going onto the field and having the captains while they just walk it through. Mm-hmm. I'm totally happy with that. And then Saturday comes and we've got a whole bunch of match day protocols, but won't get into that.
Okay. Right. So effectively, if I understand you correctly, you've got a 7-day week and there's rugby 6 days a week, where Wednesday is not necessarily compulsory, but some of the guys would probably be there on Wednesdays as well.
Yeah, and that's towards the beginning of the season. So towards the latter end of the season, my goodness, we're probably looking at maybe at most 4 days of rugby in the 7 days, but probably 3. And we try and get as much in towards the start of the season, because our preseason was so limited in terms of time on the field. And so that's where we sort of catch up. And if you go and look at the trends, let's not talk about that.
No, you can't start a sentence and then just stop it dead. You've got to at least finish the sentence.
It's no secret. If you go and look at the trends, if you go and look at the first 5-6 games of Selborne first team rugby in the last 5-6 years, the time that I've been at Selborne, we tend to not do as well as what we do later on in the season. And I think a big part of that is because of the lack of preparation on the field. And so it's a balancing act. Like I say, you adapt. It is what it is. The summer program is important, and I want our rugby boys who are part of the summer program to do incredibly well there.
Yes.
Success breeds success. And so I want them to do well. However, that lack of time on the field is probably something that catches up with us in the start of the season.
No, look, I think it's the same for most schools, is where you want athletics and cricket to also do well, because the better the school does in sport, the more quality athletes we can draw from primary schools all over the place. So yes, as rugby guys, we want rugby to run a full year, and I'm like that as well. But athletics and cricket definitely takes preference right now, and we're okay with the guys who are doing that and coming later on, because at least they're doing something, right? They're not sitting at home and doing nothing. So they are maintaining fitness levels. They are doing some sort of skills, even though it's not necessarily directly related to rugby. But before we move on from Selborne, last 2 questions here. Tell us something interesting about rugby at Selborne that we don't know about.
you know, there were a couple of Andrews boys so Mark Andrews, Keith Andrews, there were a couple of Andrews boys that came through Selborne, and I believe that all of them captained Selborne College. When it comes to, I can't think of anything else that's specific to Selborne that we do differently. But if I do think of something, I'll mention it to you.
Something that caught my eye with regards to Selborne is 2018 and 2019, when you had two grade 11 boys play SA schools in grade 11 and in grade 12. And both those boys are here with us at Western Province now, Jock Goosen and Jared Taylor. And those two gentlemen we've got to watch. Jared, I've been watching when he was with the under 21s. I'm looking forward to see him play a little bit more now. I think he's going to take a year or two because, again, like you mentioned previously, his competition is those Stormers boys now. But I'm 99.9% sure both of them are going to make it. They just need to keep their heads on screwed right. And I thought that was pretty special because you would expect something like that from a grey college maybe. And I'm not aware of any grey years where boys played SA schools. More than one player played SA schools grade 11 and in grade 12, and also ended up being captain. Jock ended up being the captain as well. So that's another pretty cool. And it was very recent. It was 2019 when both of them played their second year and Jock was captain. So that's very cool.
Look, both those boys. It was an absolute pleasure working with those kids. You know, I can tell you a story probably about both of them. So Jacques, you know, you watch the rugby that Jacques played in his matric year, even his grade 11 year. He was just an out and out bully, and that was a mindset that he had. But what people don't know is we would have our classroom sessions, and that was both from a unit and a team, and he was incapable of focusing in the class. So after 5 minutes of talking about, you know, the tactical plans that we have going into the weekend, Jacques would be looking at the window, tapping the desk. So at one point, we decided, listen, Jockey, go practice your throws, boy. You don't have to be in this classroom session. And it didn't happen all the time, but there were times where we would actually tell Jacques, you don't have to be in this analysis session, because you just need to, you know, fit into the structure of what we're going to do. And heck, it worked. But you don't expect that from a player of that caliber.
I actually believe that a lot of our really good forwards were as good as they were at the box and wherever they played because they kept it simple. I very much believe that Schalk Burger had two forwards on a rugby field. If I don't have the ball, get it. And if I have it, go forward. He very much played that sort of way. I couldn't see much of a game plan in him. Sure, there was. But, like, I think it's some of our really good players. Brendan, you were there. Brendan Fenter called it binary coaching, right? One or two things and only focus on that. And if you give them too many instructions, they kind of fall by the wayside. And I kind of felt like maybe that's what you're describing in Jock. It's very simple. If you don't have it, get it. And if you've got it, go forward. Simple.
Yeah. Look, and Jared Taylor was an absolute menace on the field. So he was, you know, he could jump in the line out. He could tackle. He could steal ball. He was an immense carrier of the ball. But he had to work with his head. And if he was in the right headspace, he was so deadly to the point where, now I think about the Grey Bloom game in 2019 where we did so well at Selborne. He was hands down for me the man of the match in that game. And that was because, you know, both Jacques and Jared went and spent a term at Grey Bloom and then returned to Selborne. It meant something to him. And when something meant something to him, when he understood why he was going out onto the field, my goodness, you saw a different beast where as a coach I went, I'm so happy this man is on my team.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge Jared Taylor fan. I was so excited when he signed with Province, and any of the games that they've broadcast where he's played in, I mean, you can even ask my brother. Like every single time when I see him, like that's the next big thing. You can't really see it yet, but if you followed his journey, you know him and Jock, they're going to do something special eventually somewhere along the line. They just because they're forwards, it's really difficult to shine right now at their age because they're not, especially with Jock, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but eventually they'll level out and their pure talent will just come through. So I'm excited to see that.
Yeah.
Right, so last one on Selborne before we move on to Border. What does Selborne rugby look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Look, there's anything is going to be good as long as there's a strong foundation. And I think over the last 5-6 years, with the influence of a Piwe Nomlomo, and obviously the legacy that Mr. Kevin Taylor left, there really is a strong foundation. And now it's just simply about building onto that. And Alan Miles is back at Selborne as of 2023. And his biggest role is to find some sort of alignment between the club. And if we can get that, I really think we'll move from strength to strength. So the next 5-10 years, keep watching the black and white.
Oh, definitely, we will do that. Right, so you've been involved with Border for a while as assistant coach in the Craven week. 2022, you were the head coach. Quickly chat to us about how does the Border Craven week side get put together? What's your trial process? How much time do you have to prep for the tournament? Those sort of things. You don't have to go into too much detail, but just give us an idea of how Border does things.
So there is Border has a Border trial. So there is only just one round of Border trials. We have a Border Schools Day where the Craven and the Academy Week management, they'll put the feelers out and sort of see what we've got. The biggest contributor to success of selecting the right players at a Border Craven Week comes down to our EPD program. The EPD program at Border, ever since I've started and have involved, it's been run in such a professional manner that it really makes it so easy to select the best players. Kudos to Piwe was in charge of that. James Winstanley was in charge of that. And then now obviously Dan Steyn in charge of the program, and it's only going from strength to strength. And that allows us as coaches in the respective provincial setups to select the best players.
Awesome, yeah. I'm also, you've got to be careful here because I'm wearing a badge on my chest. I'm a bigger fan of not just doing trials and also having a more holistic approach for a very simple reason that a player can have a bad trial. It's very difficult to pick a wing and maybe even an outside center based on seeing him play for 30 minutes or whatever. But if I'm allowed to look at his school year or his previous year or he's been in some sort of high performance system, I've got a much better idea of the player. But let's leave that at that. How long before the tournament do you have your team? Like, have you picked your 23 players and now, okay, right, we can get going?
Look, so we have already had, so at the end of 2022, we had our first EPD meeting with the new 16s and 17s that are coming through. And so obviously that gives you a really good base or good indicator as to what the team could look like. Going into this year, we will have another EPD meeting. And straight after the Border Schools Day, which is generally the first game for all the Border schools, okay. We as a Craven Week management will get together after that and that's when we'll start specifically talking about certain players, certain boys, and sort of loosely putting a squad together. But as of about start of April, that's when we get together for the first time.
As a group of 23, or you still have a couple of extras and you have to maybe thin the herd a bit?
Oh, no. So as a group of, I think we kept 32 players for the 2022. So we had 32 guys just for training purposes. Also because there was quality. It was really good quality, and there was a couple of decisions that we weren't able to make so firmly at that time. And so, yeah, we kept 32 for 2 weeks, and after those 2 weeks, we cut down 24.
Just for interest sake, so then those 8 boys that you cut, they went straight into the academy side?
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense, right?
So straight to the academy.
Right, so then you get the fixture list, and it's Western Province on day 1. Talk to me about what was the reaction, what was the planning? Because, okay, let's talk about that first, and then we'll get to the actual game.
Yeah, so we were aware of the fixtures probably a little bit before even the season started. So, you know, as a management, we had already started talking and you know, started putting things into place. How can we be best prepped? We knew that Clint was going to be the head coach. So there were a couple of things that we did to try and keep up with what Province could potentially look like. But it was a very, very clear understanding from the Craven Week management that we didn't want to go compete. We didn't want to put on a really good performance against Province but come short. We wanted to go and beat Province on their home grounds. And that was the clear intention from pretty much the first meeting. And so that's how we approached our preparation.
Yeah, and it was very clear in the way you played the game and also the talk leading up to it, because obviously I spoke a lot to Ty and those sort of things, and I love that. Because usually we would get, Clinton, the Craven side would get the Pumas or whatever on day 1, and then those guys would not pick their best team, and it would just be damage limitation. Let's just get through the Province game. And immediately once the fixtures came out and I spoke to Ty, I was like, no, we're going to come for this one. We're excited about this. This is the game we wanted. And that type of mindset, I think, is so awesome. And you saw it in the game. And I think there was 1 or 2 things that could have gone a little bit differently. At the end of the day, Clinton's my man, and I'm a Province guy, but that scoreline flattered our A side definitely. And even speaking to Clinton afterwards, he was like, look, we're just happy to walk away with the win. The score doesn't matter. That was, he was worried. He was definitely worried, but not because something specific. It's just, you know, it's his first go as the head coach, and he wanted to plan meticulously. And Border has been so good over the last couple of years, and Selborne and Queen's College, you guys put a really good team together between the 2 schools, and it's now the 2 head coaches working together as well. So it was one where he put in a hell of a lot of effort as well. We even spoke, and we went back to what we looked at with the TexTalks coaching clinic. He was looking for where you added conversation, and he couldn't find any. But Chase is not talking, and then he went back and he watched Ty's episode that I did with him to learn how Ty coaches, and he really put in a hell of a lot of planning as well. But you know, I think at the end of the day, when the final whistle blew, nobody looked at that and said, "Oh, Province, easy win." I think everybody immediately respected Border, and then obviously. I would like you to chat a little bit about your mindset after that loss, obviously, because then the fixtures got released for day 3, and now it's Province 15. Now, if you don't know what's going on in schoolboy rugby, you would say, Province B team. So it's
which is not.
There is no difference. There is no difference between the A side and the B side. There is no difference. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody else can go and say, oh, it's the Craven Week A and they are better players. The difference between the guy with the XV on and the guy on the other team is less than 1%. I can promise you that. There is very little difference between those 2 sides. So, yeah, talk to us about that Monday night. How do you deal with that loss? And then finding out, okay, now we've got the XV on Wednesday.
So before I even get there, I mean, going into day one, main game, Western Province, something that you don't have to get a border player up for a game, especially a big game like a Western Province.
Yeah.
We had we had 4 SA schoolers, but we had more guys that were wanting to make that SA school side. So it was really easy to motivate the boys. And going into that first game, you guys were, I think, the last provincial Craven Week side to actually announce your team. And there was lots of chit chat around, preparations weren't going well. Bruce Sherwood was injured. Lorenzo is actually going to be playing. Yeah. So it seemed like it was a massive disconnect and things weren't quite gelling all too well. And so the players were aware of that. And I made sure that the players were aware of that so that we could get that extra a little bit from them. The loss to Province, I can tell you, is entirely on me as a head coach. And the reason I say that is, had we played just one more warm-up game prior to going to Craven, I think we would have been in a lot better standing going into that game. Because if you go and watch that game in proper detail, you'll see that, the Province side had something ridiculous, like 2-second rucks in the first 20 minutes. You guys were physically dominant in a way that I hadn't really seen in a schoolboy game before. So there was this physical dominance. You had quick ruck ball. Everything was going your way. And our players were sort of in the headlights. And credit to Siba Mahashe, who was the captain of our side and obviously went on to captain the SA school side. He obviously had a few words with the guys, but after 20 minutes, the players adapted, and then you could see the quality or the style of rugby that the border wanted to play and could play. And so that loss was very hard, very hard because we ended the game so well, and the talk was almost, had we just started like this? And that's why I say, had we just had an extra warm-up game against a strong opposition, I think we would have been in better standing for that game. So I was quite, sitting with the management was, well, how do we get the guys up? We're going to have to play our bench in this next game. And all of a sudden, the fixtures came out. And we saw that we had drawn Province XV. And so it was a bit of a quiet feel between the management, almost to go, this is interesting. But heck, we're going to take this on and we're going to go well. I remember it like it was yesterday. We were walking to go and review the Province game from day one in preparation for the day 3 game. And one of the players looked at me and said, so it's not often that you get another bite at the cherry. And all he was saying was the loss for our players was really hard on them. Like I said, and now we get another opportunity to play against a Province team. So then it was a case of there was very little motivation or very little getting the players up for it, which was credit to them, and a fantastic output for the coaches. So going into that game, we did change 1 or 2 things in how we wanted to take on the first 20 minutes. We needed to control that better. And going into that game, my goodness, did we control those first 20 minutes a lot better, and consequently the result came.
Yeah, look, I don't know how much detail you would like to go into because obviously there's more national weeks coming and you're there again. But could you maybe elaborate on what you did differently and how you made sure you control that first 20 minutes? You don't have to if you don't want to. You don't have to.
No, it's very simple. I think if you're a rugby man and you watch the game, it's very simple to break it down. But we had no control in that first game. We were being physically dominated. The rucks we weren't contesting. We were always on the back foot. And so we had to find a way. We didn't think that Province XP were going to change anything, how they approach the game. So we needed to make sure that, one, we were dominating gain line, so both defense and attack. How do we do that? And that's where Tyron Rankin's credit, he ran the defense for the Craven side. And defensively, I think in those first 20 minutes, there were certain things that we focused on, and the boys executed incredibly well. So we were able to slow down Province in that second game, and they weren't able to get that gain line. They weren't able to get the quick ruck ball. So there were a few things that we changed specifically defensively. But on attack, we also changed one or two things. But so we wanted to slow their ball down. We needed to make sure that the physical battle was being dominated by us, and the boys executed.
Awesome, yeah. That was two very fun games to watch. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe just refresh my memory. Did the SA Schools team come out before day 3?
That's right. Yeah. So the SA Schools team was announced on the Friday before the Saturday fixture.
So obviously, the talk of the town between a lot of the coaches that were there and saw it was a couple of border boys missing here. Maybe this squad was selected before the tournament. All those. I'm not saying any of this stuff is true. I'm saying the talk around that, was it a Thursday or a Wednesday evening thing that we had the steak braai? It was a lot like, oh, but what's going on here? How was only 2 of these guys missing? So now you've got the excitement of a win, and a couple of boys obviously put up their hand massively, especially in that second game. You're expecting to see a couple of names. I even spoke to Ty afterwards, and he's like, no, these guys are in definitely. And then I know 2 of them wasn't. We don't have to mention names. So now you've got to pick these boys up to play a day 3 game against the Lions, which is Monas, Chepi, Kings, King Edward. It's a proper team.
Yeah.
Talk us through that.
Look, if there's one thing that SA Rugby and Craven we need to look at, it's certainly that selection of or announcement of the SA Schools team prior to the last game of the festival. You speak of 2 players. We had 2 players that were, in my opinion, were definitely good enough to play at an SA Schools level, at least in one of the 2. And so when those 3, and like you say, we don't have to mention names here, but there was one specific boy who received man of the match on day 1, man of the match on day 2, and didn't end up making SA Schools team. There was this element of all 3 of those players were strong characters within our team. Call them strong leaders if you must. And so when they didn't make the team, you could see on the outward, they were going, I'm fine, I'll be good. Their body language said something else. And then on the other side of the coin was the 4 players that did make the SA Schools team. I don't blame them, not for 1 second. You could see that they, barring one, you could see that they didn't want to get injured. So there's a certain way that you can approach the game, and both of us have played. There's a certain way and almost there's a certain way that you can approach the game in that I'm not going to get injured. And as a result, we had 7 players that were probably of our best 7 players, strong characters within the team, strong leaders, and it was really hard to get the boys up for that last game, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it was clearly visible as well. I think, man, you guys probably, I don't know if you do this, if you reflect and go, what could have, would have, should have, but the hell, that could have been such a different week for you guys. That could have been such a different week if, like you said, you had 1 more practice game before you played the Province A side. If the SA Schools team was announced after the 3rd game, not before the 3rd game. Because pretty much if the SA Schools team is announced, or the 2 teams that played in the final, all the other players that are in that squad is 2 things are going to come up. Like you mentioned, number 1, okay, right, I'm in, so I don't have to prove myself anymore. And number 2, shit, I don't want to mess this up, so I don't want to get injured. And now as a coach, to get you still live and die by results, right? And going home afterwards saying, hell, we ran the A side who won the Craven week close, we beat the B side, and we beat the Lions. That's a whole different Craven week for you guys to put your hats on. And I firmly believe that the only reason you lost that Lions game is because the SA school side was announced before the third day. That's my opinion. Nobody has to agree with me, but that's what I believe.
Look, and you've been part of a few Craven weeks now. When you get the draw, and I stand under correction here, but I think the Lions played Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, where we played Monday, Wednesday, Saturday.
Yes.
So going into that game, we had a whole extra 24 hours of recovery. Boys were fresh. The boys were ready to take on that game, but mentally with the whole thing of the SA schools selected, and obviously our 7 most influential players within our team, almost carrying this slouch shoulders approach. It didn't help us. It really didn't help us.
Definitely didn't. But yeah, from my perspective as an outsider, and I also sent the messages to Ty afterwards. The hell, you guys can be very proud of that 2022 campaign. And I think all it'll really do, because I know you now after talking to you, and I know Ty as well. All it's going to do is it's going to motivate you guys for a hell of a 2023. So yeah, I'm really good 2022, but I'm now super excited to watch you guys in 2023 because I think that's going to be pretty cool.
Look, there's a lot of exciting prospects coming through. You know, the Queen's College and the Hudson Park under 16 age group last year were both very, very strong age groups. Queens have got some quality players. So yeah, the prospects of what the Border Craven Week 2023 side could look like is quite exciting.
Awesome. Now, looking forward to that journey, definitely. So right, Chase, let's start winding down a little bit. As a coach, obviously we need to stay up to date with what's going on in the rugby world. So what do you do to stay up to date with trends? How do you develop yourself and learn new things?
It's for me, it's just about surrounding yourself with like-minded people that are really good at their trade, and obviously just getting into a place where you can actually, and I think we saw it with COVID, where COVID was terrible in terms of we didn't actually have contact centers where you can practice coaching. Yeah, and so and that's where the TRC comes in. You know, it's really good for us before the season starts. We've got a couple of extra sessions that we're working. So for me, it's just about surrounding yourself with rugby people, and about quality people who are just really good at their trade. And then just about getting out there, whether that is coaching with one boy, whether you're just doing a work-on with one boy or with 10 boys or with a squad of 30. It's about getting out there and actually just practicing your trade.
Awesome. You've mentioned the TRC, the Total Rugby Program. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? What is that, and what are you guys doing with that?
So the TRC, the Total Rugby Coaching Academy, is something that myself, James, and Luwazi got together, and the whole heart behind it was how can we take order to new heights? How can we do a little bit more so that the border schools team can get a little bit more out? And that's where it started. So the three of us, along with Matt Francis, so the four of us, we got together and we put this program together. We advertised and we got some really good kids out there. So I think the first season that we had the TRC, we had 40 kids on the books. And it was a proper professional setup where we could expose them to things that perhaps they weren't being exposed to at a school level. And that's something that we were quite pedantic on as a founders group was, let's give these guys quality. So, from a conditioning perspective, from a positional fundamental perspective, from a skills and team perspective, also from a mental side, we covered everything. And it was really successful first out, and I'm really looking forward to the next season.
Yeah, and I'll just add on there. You've already spoken about the mental coach and the role that he plays with Selborne. The other two gentlemen that you've mentioned, James is the assistant coach of the SA School side, and Luazi is involved with the SA School A side. So it is, and then you're the head coach of Border. So it's proper guys who are in the channels of schoolboy rugby in South Africa who know what they're doing and who know what they are looking for if you want to wear the Bok on your chest one day. So yeah, I'd highly recommend anybody. I don't know, is it do you guys only do preseason programs, or do you get together again later on in the year?
Yeah, so it's just preseason and off season that we focus on. So I mean the magnitude of where rugby is going and what it is at the moment, it's almost impossible to work in extra sessions during season. So definitely. It's pre and post season, and we try and focus on certain things depending on where we are.
Oh, great initiative. I love it. And obviously we'll throw up contact details and we'll throw in a couple of promotional videos in there as well. I highly recommend, if you're in the area, to get involved with these guys, proper coaches who will definitely help you get better. But if we go back to you, as a coach, as a young coach, and I think anybody who's listened to this, and as I've listened to this, you clearly are a really very organized guy. You know exactly what it is you want to achieve, and you've got some goals ahead of you. So how do you stay motivated? How do you make sure that you stay on track to achieve everything it is that you want to?
Yeah, for me, what I've realized, if I'm constantly exercising and just looking after my well-being, and I've realized as I've gotten older that looks different. But I love the inside of a gym. I love throwing around some heavy weights. If I'm looking after my exercise and my well-being, I tend to be a lot better of a chase. I tend to be a lot more disciplined, and I can probably pour from a fuller cup. So, how do I stay motivated? Definitely looking after myself. So definitely looking after my exercise routines and making sure that I'm doing that sort of thing, because then I'm a lot more disciplined. I'm just a lot better individual. But also just making sure that I surround myself again with the right people, and it doesn't have to be rugby. As I said earlier to you, one of the mentors in my life at the moment is a businessman, entrepreneur. He just brings a totally different dynamic of thinking. It's about that. It's about, coming alongside people who are like-minded, who are hardworking, who are willing to go the extra mile. Keeps me motivated.
Awesome. So if there are a couple of young boys watching this, maybe some boys in primary school in and around East London, if there are potential guys who want to play Craven Week for Border watching, any advice for the young guys out there?
The advice text is very simple for me. Don't wait to be spoon-fed. If you have a passion, if you have a certain skill set, and you want to take rugby and want to make it a living, I stand firm by the saying, you want to make it in rugby, and you will. But that want is it looks very, very different, very, very complex. Don't wait for the coach to come and tell you what to do. Go and work on things your own. So we've got YouTube, we've got things online. Go and talk to teachers, go and talk to parents, go and talk to family. whatever it is that you have to do, take initiative in going, how is it that I can be better at my trade? And then simply don't be shy to put the work in. But don't wait to be spoon-fed and wait that only the coach of the first team can assist me in this. No, you can put in a lot of work right now that can better you as a rugby player and will essentially push you a lot further along.
That's a great piece of advice, and I hope the young ones out there pay attention to that. So what about coaches? Do you have any advice for coaches out there?
Oh, look, I'm still very young in my coaching career, but if there's a fair amount that I've picked up in my time thus far, and that is, if you're a coach, don't be scared to coach like this. A lot of coaches are like this. They don't want to share. They don't want to delegate work. They want to hold on to all of the responsibility. I think it's really important to, one, surround yourself with people that you trust. And in school systems, sometimes we don't have that liberty. And so if it's not people that you trust, find a way to make sure there is a trust bond between you guys. That's incredibly important for me. So make sure that you can delegate, you can share the responsibility, because that goes a long way with coach.
Awesome. No, I agree with that fully. I'm going to have to ask you to take off your border cap now, if you can, right? And looking to 2023's Craven Week as well as 2023's Grand Como, who do you see as, okay, let's not say potential winners, because it'll be very bad for your reputation if you don't say border. Who do you think are teams that we need to look out for? Let's start with the Grand Como. Who do you think is somebody we need to look out for?
Yeah, I think, if I'm being honest, I would be lying if I told you anything outside of border. But the Selborne under 15 team of 2022 was a very, very strong age group, and I'm really excited to work with them. And then on top of that, the Queen's age group was very strong. So I have no doubt that under 16 Grand Como side will be a very strong age group. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for them. And Quinton Lust, who's the first team head coach at Queen's, he heads up the under 16 program. So a fantastic coach and really good players coming through there. So I think that they could be very competitive next year. And then Craven Week. Craven Week's always an interesting one. Shoot me down if you must, because you've got a certain badge there in your chest. It's largely known that Craven Weeks are set up so that Western Province can win it.
Oh, come
on. Am I wrong, Tex?
Yes, you are. No, look, obviously the team to beat will always be Province, and I don't even think it's because of the makeup of the week necessarily, but I think it's just purely because we're so blessed with talent over here. The schools system and the way schools are operating rugby in the Cape is absolutely ridiculous. And I think it's not as much an achievement for Western Province when we win the Craven Week. I think it's more an absolute embarrassment when we don't. Because if you have what we have here, Paul Roos, Paul Boys, Boland Landbou, the Stellenbergs that are coming through, and you have the coaches that work with these guys, the Clinton van Rensburgs, the Bobby is from Millerton, the Sean Erasmus, the Corner Ace, and all those guys. It would almost be an embarrassment if we don't win, right? But a lot of things can happen, and I think if other provinces do what they've done this year, I think there were 2 or 3 things that we as province guys noticed, and we said, oh hell, some of these provinces are doing some smart things, and they will catch up eventually. If that keeps happening, eventually it will be close. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at the games, the A side won. The game against you guys was close, right? The game against the Sharks was close. The game against the Bulls was close. Yeah, the scoreline might say something different, but it's only late a try here or there that inflates it a little bit. You guys did some smart things. the Sharks, Heinrich, did some smart things that we were like, oh, okay. The Bulls came with something that we were like, oh, okay. So there's ways to beat Province, definitely. And if you want my banking details, we can talk about that afterwards. But look, I think it's up there. And if I have to say, yes, Province will always be there. But I think there are some provincial sides, like, for example, a Border, who are doing things right and are doing things to advance the team and not to advance agendas or political things, or not. It's not about the coach. It's actually about how do we get the best out of the performance. And in terms of that, I think most provinces are ahead of Western Province with regards to that. So if you guys keep doing that, eventually, I'm probably going to cut this part out, but I'm looking forward to somebody beating us so we can start learning and doing things differently, because we've been doing the things the exact same way for the last 10 years. And it's frustrating because if we actually start taking our build up to the Craven Week a little bit more seriously, nobody will catch us. Nobody will catch us. But what we do leading up is so wrong and so pedantic and just last minute that it's actually really impressive to see the teams do what they are doing. It's not all sunshine and roses over here, like teams, because somehow our coaches get together, and that's why Clinton and those, especially Clinton, I give massive props to that man. He is really, really good under pressure, and it's But yeah, I think I've spoken too much.
Look, I think Craven Week next year is, you have to look at where Craven Week is next year. I think SVD is going to be proper. I think they had a storm of a Craven Week in 2022, and I believe that they've got some quality coming through. So I think SVD will be very, very strong going into this season. Yeah. Province is always going to contend. And then you've got the likes of Bulls that I think would be quite upset that they didn't end up winning the unofficial final. So yeah, it will no doubt be competitive, especially having had a rugby season already. Yeah. I'm going to see a lot more quality rugby on show.
Definitely. Right. Chase, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a really awesome chat. And I want to finish up with this one. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Like I said earlier, I'm very big on just making sure that Chase Morison is evolving and keeping up with the times and really just becoming better as a human being. And as long as there's rugby and as long as there's people in my life, I'll be exceptionally happy. So
that's a great answer, man. Chase, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been a long conversation. We're definitely going to have to split it up into 2 episodes, but it's been a great conversation, man. I've really learned a lot from you, from talking with you. I think you're a great guy, an awesome coach, and I want to wish you all the best for 2023 and all the best for your future endeavors. Hopefully we'll run into each other with seminars and things coming up. And I'm really glad that I have this type of network where I can talk to guys like you and learn and just get motivated again and get excited about the schoolboy game, because this is a passion we all have, and I think we all want to achieve a lot. But again, like you said, if we just hang on to the human beings and the friends and the networks that we build up, it just adds so much more to it. So from my side, thank you so much for your time. All the best for 2023, and have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your holiday.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate this. It was really great chatting. Just going down memory lane. It's always a good time. So thank you for the opportunity, and all the best to you with your new venture at your new school.
Thanks, man.
Hope that goes well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very excited. I'm going to share a lot of stuff that I do at the school, but I still need to get their permission. But I like this type of thing. Like you say, it's open hand, man. Where's the camera? It's open hand. If you don't give, if your hand is closed, you can't receive either. So yeah, I'm very excited and going to share a lot, and I'll be chatting with you a lot about some of the good things you're doing as well. But yeah, thank you very much again, and all the best. Have a lovely day and enjoy 2023. Cheers.
Thanks for that.